Revenge with Karen.
I knew shit was fucked when I walked into the server room and realized the hum of the cooling fans sounded less like a purr and more like a dying asthmatic wheezing through a straw. That room was my sanctuary, my church of the oscillating fan, my fortress of solitude, where I kept the financial heart of this god-forsaken company beating. They called me a senior systems analyst, which is corporate speak for the only person who knows where the bodies are buried and which wires to jiggle so 10,000 people don't riot. For 7 years, I've been the duct tape holding this titanic disaster together. I'm not your typical IT crowd. I don't own a Tesla, I don't drink kombucha, and I sure as hell don't microdose mushrooms to optimize my flow state. I'm a mechanic. My hands just happen to be covered in digital grease instead of 10W30. I run the payroll backend for a logistics giant that ships everything from plastic dog turds to insulin across the Midwest. If I call in sick, the truck drivers in Omaha don't get their overtime. And when truck drivers don't get their overtime, they start parking 18-wheelers on the CEO's lawn. So, I'm sitting there, staring at a command line that's blinking at me like an insolent teenager, nursing a cup of coffee that tastes like battery acid and regret. I just finished patching a memory leak that threatened to swallow the entire Midwest region's tax withholdings. It was a masterpiece of ugly code, a patch job that looked like a screen door on a submarine, but it held. It always held. Hey, look, before I get into how these suit-wearing vultures tried to turn my life into a grim country song, do me a solid. Smash that subscribe button and give this a like. It helps the algorithm know that you enjoy watching corporate train wrecks in slow motion. We're about to drive off a cliff, so buckle up. Okay, back to the grime. You have to understand the system. Management thinks it's this sleek, cloud-based, AI-driven marvel because that's what the sales brochure said when they bought the shell of it back in 2015. In reality, it's 3 raccoons in a trench coat fighting over a half-eaten bagel. It's a legacy SQL database from the Bush administration held together by my custom scripts, prayers, and pure spite. I call it the beast. Every 2 weeks, the beast wakes up hungry. It demands data from 42 different time tracking softwares, half of which haven't been updated since the iPhone 4 came out. It has to calculate shift differentials for union workers in Chicago, commission structures for sales sharks in Miami, and hazard pay for the guys working the chemical docks in Jersey. If a single decimal point is out of place, the beast chokes. And when the beast chokes, people miss rent. My job wasn't just running software. It was wrestling a muddy pig in the dark. I knew that the HR module in Denver had a glitch where it would randomly delete surnames, starting with MC, if the server load went above 80%. I knew that the warehouse in St. Louis uploaded their timesheets in a TXT format that was technically corrupt, but I wrote a parser to strip the garbage characters out at 3:00 a.m. every alternating Tuesday. Nobody told me to do that. Nobody paid me extra for that. I did it because I have this sickness called pride in my work, even if the work is shoveling digital manure. The office outside my server room was a different world. It was a sterilized purgatory of beige cubicles and fake smiles. You know the type. People walking around with $12 salads talking about synergy and circling back, while I'm in the back room practically holding 2 live wires together with my teeth. They looked at me like I was part of the furniture, slightly dusty, grumpy lamp that occasionally emitted profanity. Morning, Karen. The HR director, Linda, would chirp as she walked by. Linda smelled like expired vanilla body spray and desperation. Payroll looking good for Friday? Unless the server catches fire or God strikes me down, Linda, I'd grunt, not looking up from my monitors. Great, you're such a rock, a rock. Yeah, something you step on. Something you ignore until you trip over it. Didn't know that 3 days ago, a ransomware bot tried to tickle our firewall, and I spent 6 hours manually rerouting port traffic while they were all at a team-building waffle breakfast. They ate waffles, I ate stress and Advil, but I liked the stability. I'm 45. I've got a mortgage on a little place that needs a new roof, a cat named Buster who hates men, and a toleration for solitude. I didn't need their praise. I just needed the paycheck and the satisfaction of knowing I was the smartest person in the room, even if no one else knew it. Then came the rumors. You know how it starts. The water cooler talk shifts. The vibe changes. It smells like ozone before a storm. We got acquired, or merged, or strategically aligned. Whatever buzzword they used to justify the incoming bloodbath. A new vice president of operations was coming in from corporate HQ. Looked him up on LinkedIn. His profile picture was one of those black and white shots where he's staring off into the middle distance, looking like he's pondering the solution to world hunger, but really he's just thinking about his golf handicap. His bio was full of words like disruptor, change agent, and visionary. I hate visionaries. Visionaries are just guys who hallucinate problems that don't exist so they can sell you solutions you don't need. I was sitting in my cave, running the pre-check validation for the upcoming cycle, a process that involves scanning 10,000 employee records for errors, when I got the calendar invite. Subject: Operational Sync/Future State Location. VP Office Attendees Karen M, Chad V, VP Brad V. Brad. Who the hell was Brad? I felt a twitch in my left eye. The kind of twitch you get when you see a storm cloud that's shaped like a middle finger. I saved my work. I backed up the scripts to my local drive, a habit born of paranoia and experience. I grabbed my faded lanyard, patted the server rack affectionately like you'd pat a good hunting dog, and marched out into the fluorescent nightmare of the open plan office. The air felt thin. People were typing too quietly. They knew. The office ecosystem is like the jungle. When the lion is hunting, the monkeys shut the hell up. I walked past Linda's desk. She wouldn't make eye contact. She was aggressively typing an email, staring at her screen with the intensity of a bomb disposal expert. Traitor, I whispered under my breath. I reached the VP's office, glass walls, frosted just enough to obscure the incompetence happening inside. I knocked on the glass. Come in, a voice boomed. It sounded like it was practiced in a mirror. I opened the door and stepped onto plush carpet that probably cost more than my car. Sitting behind the mahogany desk was Chad, the visionary. He looked like a Ken doll that had been left in the microwave, shiny, plastic, and slightly melting with age. And sitting on the leather couch, tapping on an iPad, was a kid. He couldn't have been more than 24. He was wearing a vest, one of those puffy Patagonia fleece vests that scream my dad sued the college to get me in. He had hair that defied gravity and a smirk that defied physics. Karen, sit, sit, had gestured to a chair that was significantly lower than his own. Power move. Classic, I sat. What can I do for you, Chad? I've got the pre-check running, so I have about 20 minutes before I need to manually override the Texas tax tables. Chad chuckled. It was a dry, rattling sound. Always in the weeds, huh, Karen? That's what we love about you, the grit. It's not grit, it's maintenance, I said flatly. The system is old, Chad. It needs a babysitter. Right. The system, Chad leaned back, tenting his fingers. That's actually what we wanted to talk about. This is Brad. The kid on the couch looked up. Sup, he said. Brad is he's our new operational efficiency consultant. Chad corrected himself quickly. Fresh out of his MBA program, top of his class. Online or accredited? I asked. I couldn't help it. The filter between my brain and my mouth had eroded years ago. Chad's smile tightened. Brad has been reviewing our workflow. He's identified some redundancies, I repeated. The word hung in the air like a fart in an elevator. Yeah, Brad piped up, standing up and walking over. He didn't walk, he sauntered. So I've been looking at what you do, the scripts, the SQL patches, it's all very 1999. It's 2024 and it works, I said, my grip on the chair armrest tightening. It pays 10,000 people. On time. Every time. But it's manual, Brad said, waving his hand dismissively. It's high friction. I've built a model that streamlines the whole ingestion process. A model? I asked. You built a payroll engine in 2 weeks, not an engine, Brad smirked. I use the existing data export feeds. I can run the whole allocation matrix. In Excel. I stared at him. I stared at him for a long, long time. The silence stretched until it snapped. Excel, I said softly, going to run a multi-state, union-compliant, variable tax rate payroll for 10,000 employees. In a spreadsheet? With macros, Brad added as if that explained everything. It's super agile. I looked at Chad. Is this a joke? Am I being punked? Is Ashton Kutcher popping out of that fern? Chad's face went hard. We're pivoting to a lean methodology, Karen. We need to modernize your role, the legacy maintenance. It's just not in the budget for the next quarter. Handing the process over to Brad effective immediately. The words hit me like a bag of wet cement. Fired. Replaced by a spreadsheet and a haircut. You're firing me, I stated. We're letting you explore new opportunities, Chad corrected. Today is your last day. HR has your packet. I looked at Brad. He was already bored, scrolling on his phone. He had no idea. He thought payroll was just math. He didn't know it was warfare. The pay cycle runs on Friday, I said, my voice dangerously calm. Today is Tuesday. If you switch over now, we'll be fine, Brad interrupted. My macros are solid. I stood up. My knees popped. I felt a strange sensation washing over me. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't fear. It was the cold, dark liberation of a woman who just watched a man pull the pin on a grenade and stick it in his own pocket. Okay, I said. Okay, Chad. Okay, Brad. Please leave your badge at the desk, Chad said, already looking at his computer. I turned to the door. One thing, what? Chad sighed. When the beast gets hungry, I said, looking Brad dead in the eyes, don't feed it after midnight. What? Brad crinkled his nose. You'll figure it out, I smiled. It was a shark smile. Good luck on payday. I walked out. The air in the hallway felt different now. It didn't smell like ozone anymore. It smelled like gasoline. And I was the one walking away with the only lighter. Walk from the VP's office back to my desk felt like a funeral procession for common sense. My heels clicked on the linoleum, click, clack, click, clack, a metronome counting down to their destruction. I passed the hang in there. Cat poster in the break room. The cat looked like it wanted to let go. I knew the feeling, Kitty. I knew the feeling. My desk was an island of controlled chaos in a sea of corporate sterility. Dual monitors, mechanical keyboard that sounded like gunfire, and a stack of sticky notes that contained the Rosetta Stone of this company's financial survival. Error 404 on Gateway 7 equals reboot the secondary cache manually. Tim in accounting is a liar. Verify his inputs. I grabbed a cardboard box. I didn't pack much. A framed photo of Buster the cat. My lucky screwdriver set. A stash of emergency ibuprofen. My mug that said I'm here because you broke it. Brad, the Nepo baby prince of spreadsheets, hovered behind me. He was literally hovering, standing on his toes, trying to peek at my monitors before I shut them down. So, he said, popping a piece of gum, if you could just forward me any relevant passwords. For the handover, I stopped packing. I turned slowly. I looked at this kid who thought pivot tables were a personality trait. Relevant passwords, I repeated. Yeah, admin access. Database keys, the usual. It's in the documentation, I lied. There was no documentation. The documentation was a Word document from 2009 that just said good luck and a picture of a burning building. But I wasn't going to tell him that. Cool, cool, Brad nodded, clearly not listening. I'm gonna migrate the data tonight. My Excel model is gonna blow Chad's mind. It's got a dashboard with like traffic lights. Red for stop, green for pay. Traffic lights, I deadpanned. Revolutionary, I know, right? Visualizing the cash flow, that's the future. He was so confident. It was the confidence of a toddler running toward a swimming pool holding a toaster. He honestly believed that a complex relational database with 1 million dependencies could be replaced by VLOOKUP and conditional formatting. It was almost cute, in a horrific, Titanic sinking sort of way. Brad, I said, leaning in close, smelled his cologne, something aquatic and overpriced, like bottled disappointment. Do you know what a race condition is? Is that like diversity hiring? He asked, looking confused. No, Brad. It's when two threads try to write to the same memory location at the same time. The system panics. It usually results in zeroing out the transaction. Excel doesn't have threads, he scoffed. It has cells. Exactly, I whispered. I hit the power button on my tower. The fans spun. Hum died. The silence was deafening. That computer had been running for 400 days straight. Killing it felt like smothering a friend with a pillow. Well, I said, hoisting my box. It's all yours, Brad, the keys to the kingdom. Thanks, Karen, no hard feelings, right? Just business. Just business, I echoed. I walked toward the elevator. Heads popped up from cubicles like prairie dogs sensing a predator. They watched me go. Linda from HR stood in the hallway, holding a file folder like a shield. Karen, she said, her voice trembling slightly, we need your badge, and you need to sign the NDA and the severance agreement. I looked at the paperwork. Standard severance, 2 weeks plus a month if you sign a non-disparagement clause. I laughed. It was a bark of a laugh, harsh and jagged. I don't need to disparage you, Linda. Reality is going to do that for me. Give me the pen. I signed. Slapped the badge on her clipboard. It made a loud thwack that made her flinch. Escort her out, Chad's voice came from down the hall. He wasn't even looking at me. He was standing by the window, hands clasped behind his back, probably imagining he was Steve Jobs. Security was waiting. It was Paul, a guy I'd smoked cigarettes with on the loading dock for 5 years. He looked embarrassed. Sorry, Karen, Paul muttered, taking my elbow gently. Orders. It's okay, Paul. I said, do me a favor? Anything. Cash your check early on Friday. Like the minute the bank opens. Paul frowned. Why? Just trust me. Before noon, Paul, before noon. We walked through the lobby. The glass doors slid open, and the humidity of the summer hit me. It was thick and heavy, smelling of hot asphalt and exhaust. I walked to my 2012 car that I kept running with the same stubbornness I applied to the payroll server. I tossed my box in the passenger seat, climbed in, cranked the engine, and let the AC blast me in the face. I lit a Marlboro Red. The first drag tasted like freedom. The second drag tasted like revenge. I sat there for a minute, watching the building. It was a giant glass box full of people who thought they were important. They thought the lights stayed on because of electricity. They thought the checks cleared because of banks. They didn't know it was all held together by the sweat and anxiety of people like me. They had just fired the janitor. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't save, but I knew was Brad's. Hey Kay, just loaded the master CSV into the sheet. It's lagging a bit. Is there a trick to make it faster? I stared at the screen. Lagging a bit. He probably just tried to load 10,000 rows of historical data into a pivot table on a laptop with 8 gigs of RAM. I didn't reply. I took another drag of my cigarette, exhaled a plume of gray smoke against the windshield, and put the truck in gear. Create a ticket, I said to the empty cab. I drove home. I stopped at the liquor store on the way, not for the cheap stuff. I bought a bottle of good bourbon, the kind you drink when you're celebrating a birth or a death. When I got home, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I put on my sweatpants, the ones with the bleach stain on the knee, and I sat on my porch. I poured a glass. I watched the sun go down over the neighbor's unkempt lawn. The silence in my head was beautiful. For 7 years, my brain had been a constant ticker tape of deadlines, error codes, and compliance updates. Now, nothing, just the crickets and the ice melting in my glass. But I knew what was happening back at the office. I could feel it. The electrons were colliding. Brad was probably clicking refresh on his spreadsheet, wondering why the wheel was spinning. Didn't know that the raw data from the warehouse time clocks came with a hidden header row that corrupted Excel parsing unless you stripped it with a Python script. He'd find out. Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, but Friday was coming. Friday is Judgment Day. I took a sip of bourbon. It burned, warm and lovely. My son has an MBA, I mocked, speaking to the cat who had wandered out to join me. Buster, do you have an MBA? Buster licked his butt. Exactly, I said, you're overqualified. Wednesday morning broke with the kind of aggressive sunshine that makes a hangover feel like a personal attack from God. But I wasn't hungover. I was clear, crystal clear. I woke up at 6:30 a.m. out of habit, reached for my phone to check the server logs, and then stopped. My hand hovered over the nightstand, not my monkeys, not my circus. I rolled over, pulled the duvet up, and slept until 10. It was the most rebellious thing I've done since I smoked weed behind the bleachers in 1996. By noon, I was on my couch, watching a documentary about deep-sea squids, eating dry cereal out of the box. My phone was on the coffee table, face down. I'd set it to silent, but I could hear the vibration against the wood. Buzz, buzz, buzz. It started slow. A few texts from work friends. Where are you? Linda said you left. Bro, Brad is running around sweating through his vest. What did you do? I didn't answer. I just watched the giant squid fight a sperm whale. It was a metaphor. I was the squid, or maybe the whale. Either way, someone was getting eaten in the dark. I opened my laptop, my personal laptop, a beat-up ThinkPad running Linux, not the corporate spyware garbage they gave me. I couldn't access the internal servers anymore, obviously. My credentials had probably been revoked before I hit the parking lot. But here's the thing about the beast. It connects to outside vendors, the bank, the benefits portal, the 401k provider. I couldn't log in, but I could see the traffic requests on the public-facing APIs if I knew where to look. And I knew where to look because I built the damn gateways. It was quiet. Too quiet. Usually, on a Wednesday before payroll, the system is screaming. It's pinging the bank for verification tokens. It's batch processing the tax withholdings. Today, flatline. He hasn't even initiated the handshake, I muttered to myself, a piece of cornflake falling onto my shirt. He thinks he can do it all in one batch on Friday. Brad, oh Brad, you sweet summer child. You don't batch process 10,000 payments on the day of. The ACH clearinghouse needs 48 hours to scrub for fraud. If you don't send the preliminary file by Thursday noon, the money doesn't move until Monday. He was treating payroll like Venmo. He thought he could just hit send and instant transfer millions of dollars. My phone buzzed again. A long one, a call. Caller ID, unknown number. I let it ring. It went to voicemail. 2 minutes later, a voicemail notification popped up. I debated listening to it. Curiosity is a hell of a drug. I cracked a beer. It was 1:00 p.m. Judge me all you want and hit play. Hi Karen, it's Brad. Look, I know you're probably taking some personal time, but I'm looking at the overtime calculation for the California drivers. The spreadsheet keeps returning a #ref error. I think the formula is broken. If you could just text me the logic you used, that would be super chill. Thanks. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my beer. #ref error. California drivers didn't use standard overtime. They had a rolling 8-hour window based on state legislation from 2012. It wasn't a formula. It was a stored procedure in the SQL database that cross-referenced GPS logs with clock-in times. Brad was trying to calculate it in a cell. He was trying to fit an elephant into a carry-on bag. I didn't text him back. Thursday arrived. The tension in my living room was palpable, even though I was the only one there. I knew the timeline. Thursday, 10:00 a.m., the deadline for the finalized payroll file to be submitted to the controller for approval. Thursday, 12:00 p.m., the hard cutoff for the ACH bank transmission. At 10:15 a.m., my phone started having a seizure. Buzz, 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 buzz. Texts from the office survivors group chat, which I was technically still in. Guys, why is the VP screaming in the conference room? Brad looks like he's gonna cry. Payroll isn't locked yet. I have a mortgage due on the 1st. I poured another coffee. I added a shot of whiskey, Irish coffee. It's a health drink. At 11:30 a.m., I got a text from Linda. Karen, please pick up. We have a question about the legacy system. It's urgent. I stared at the word legacy. That was the word they used to fire me. Legacy, outdated, redundant. Now the legacy is urgent, I whispered. I typed a reply. My thumb hovered over the send button. Have you tried asking Excel? No, too petty, I deleted it. Silence was louder. 12:00 p.m. came and went. The deadline passed. The ACH window was closed. I knew what that meant. Even if they fixed it right now, even if Jesus himself came down and debugged the spreadsheet, the direct deposits wouldn't hit on Friday morning. The electronic bridge was up. The drawbridge was raised. The money was stuck. I imagined the scene, realization dawning on them. The panic. The frantic calls to the bank, begging for an exception. The bank telling them, sorry, protocol is protocol. Brad standing there in his fleece vest, realizing that agile methodology doesn't work on federal banking regulations. I felt a pang of guilt, not for Brad, not for Chad, but for the guys on the dock, for Paul, for the single moms in customer service. They were going to wake up tomorrow with empty accounts. Then I remembered the meeting. Your role is redundant. My son has an MBA. If I fixed it now, they'd never learn. They'd think Brad pulled a miracle. They'd think I was just being dramatic. No, the lesson had to be complete. The house had to burn down so they would understand why they needed a fire extinguisher. I went to the kitchen and started making a sandwich. Ham and cheese, extra mustard. As I spread the mustard, I hummed a little tune. Closing time. My phone rang again. It was Chad's executive assistant. I silenced it. I took a bite of my sandwich. It tasted like justice. Spicy, yellow justice. Excel can't save you now, boys. You're in the deep end and you fired the lifeguard. By Thursday afternoon, the tremors had started. It wasn't the big quake yet that was reserved for Friday morning, but the plates were shifting. You see, Brad hadn't just missed the ACH deadline. In his infinite wisdom, in his attempt to streamline the data, he had evidently tried to manually upload some files to the employee portal so people could at least see their pay stubs. A noble effort. A stupid, catastrophic effort. I got a screenshot forwarded to me from a friend in the warehouse, Big Tony. Yo, Karen, why does my pay stub say I worked 4,000 hours this week, and my net pay is negative $12,000? Did I rob the company? I zoomed in on the image. Brad had mixed up the columns. He had mapped the employee ID column to the hours worked column. I laughed until I wheezed. I sounded like a pack of Marlboros trying to start a lawnmower. It was a classic shift-left error. He deleted a column in Excel, and everything shifted over. Now, the system thought Tony, employee ID #4120, had worked 4,120 hours. And because the tax bracket formula went into a panic attack at that number, it withheld 150% of his soul. Then came the email blast. Someone leaked it to me. From Chad V, VP Operations, to all staff subject, payroll system update minor display glitch, Team, you may notice some anomalies on your pay stubs in the portal today. We are transitioning to a modern, high-efficiency payroll architecture. This is a display error only and does not reflect your actual deposit. Are working through some teething issues with the legacy data migration. Thanks for your patience as we innovate. Innovate. He used the word innovate to describe formatting a CSV file like a toddler finger painting with feces. Legacy data migration, I scoffed at my phone. You mean copy-paste. The gaslighting was incredible. They were blaming the legacy data. They were blaming my work. It wasn't that the new driver was drunk. It was that the old road was too curvy. Started getting LinkedIn notifications. Recruiters. Hey Karen, heard you're on the market. We need a COBOL expert. Karen, are you available for contract work? We have a burning server. News travels fast in IT. The systems admins at other companies talk. They sniff out blood in the water, they knew. If a payroll run fails at a major logistics firm, the vibrations travel through the network. I ignored them. I wasn't ready to work. I was busy watching the world. Thursday night was the calmest night of my life. Usually, Thursday night is the vigil. I stay up until 2:00 a.m. monitoring the batch processes, watching the green text scroll, waiting for the success flag. Tonight, I took a bubble bath. I don't even like bubble baths. I feel like I'm marinating in my own dirt. But I did it because I could. I poured a glass of wine, put on some Enya, don't judge me, and soaked. My phone was on the toilet lid. Face up this time. I wanted to see the desperation. 8:45 p.m. text from Brad. K, seriously. The tax tables for the stat aren't calculating city tax. Is there a hidden sheet? I unhid all rows, but I can't find the municipal codes. 9:12 p.m. text from Linda HR. Karen, we might need to contract you for a few hours. Consultation rate. Can we talk? 10:30 p.m. missed call from Chad. No voicemail. Was too proud to leave a voicemail. I sank lower into the bubbles. Municipal codes aren't in the sheet, Brad, I whispered to the steam. They're called via an API from the state government server, which requires an encrypted handshake key that is stored on a secure USB drive in my desk drawer. The one you probably threw in the trash. That key rotated every 30 days. It had rotated yesterday. Without that key, we're calculating taxes based on 0%. That's a federal crime. That's IRS agents with windbreakers territory. They weren't just incompetent, they were accidentally embezzling. I got out of the tub, dried off, and put on my favorite oversized t-shirt, the one with a picture of Danny DeVito eating a ham sandwich. It felt appropriate. I checked the weather for tomorrow. Thunderstorms, perfect. I went to bed. I slept like a baby. Baby who knows that the adults have lost the keys to the house and left the oven on. Tomorrow, 10,000 people wake up to empty bank accounts. Tomorrow, the innovation hits the fan. Friday morning, the day the eagle is supposed to shit. But today, the eagle was constipated. I woke up at 7:00 a.m. to the sound of my phone vibrating so hard it was slowly walking across the nightstand. It wasn't just texts anymore. It was social media. I opened Facebook. My feed, usually full of Minions memes from my aunt and photos of people's ugly dinners, was a wall of fire. Checking account empty. WTF at company name. My rent is due today. Where's my money? Anyone else not get paid? I'm at the gas station and my card declined. The warehouse workers were mobilizing. The union rep, a guy named Big Mike who has hands the size of honey hams, posted a video standing in front of the distribution center. No pay, no play, Mike growled into the camera. Trucks ain't moving until the money hits. This is breach of contract. A wildcat strike, in less than 8 hours since the deposits failed. I turned on the local news while I made coffee, and there it was. A ticker at the bottom of the screen, logistics giant faces payroll glitch, union threatens walkout. Glitch. They were still calling it a glitch. Glitch is when your video game freezes. This was systemic organ failure. My phone rang. It was Paul from security. I picked up. Karen, his voice was hushed. It's a war zone here. Did you cash your check, Paul? Yeah, Tuesday, like you said. I'm the only guard who isn't threatening to quit. Listen, Chad is screaming at the IT director. They're looking for the backups. Good luck, I said, sipping my coffee. They're saying the backups are corrupt. They're saying you sabotaged them. My grip on the mug tightened. I didn't sabotage shit, Paul. The backups are encrypted. The decryption key is in a script that runs automatically when I log in with my admin credentials. Credentials they deleted. It's a fail-safe. Dead man's switch. If I get hacked, the attacker can't read the backups. If I get fired, well, They're talking about legal, Karen. They're saying they're going to sue you for malicious destruction of data. Let them try, I said. My employment contract says I'm responsible for system maintenance, not post-termination consulting. And the data isn't destroyed. It's just locked in a box and they threw away the key. Brad is crying, Paul added, like actual tears. In the break room, good. Salt water is good for the complexion. I hung up. The legal threat annoyed me. It was the last refuge of the incompetent. We broke it, so we'll sue you for not being here to fix it. I walked over to my bookshelf. I pulled down a thick binder, Standard Operating Procedures 2018. I had written it years ago. It was outdated, sure, but it had the core architecture diagrams. I flipped through it. I could fix this. I could walk in there, type 6 lines of code, restore the SQL state from Tuesday, and force push the ACH file. The bank would charge a massive rush fee, but people would get paid by Saturday morning. But why should I? Replaced me with a spreadsheet. They insulted my life's work. They endangered the livelihoods of 10,000 families because they wanted to save a senior salary and pay a 24-year-old MBA peanuts. If I saved them now, they'd learn nothing. They'd say, see, it was just a hiccup. Brad would keep his job. Chad would get his bonus. No, they needed to feel the heat. They needed to smell the burning plastic. I got an email on my personal account. Not from Chad, from the legal department. Subject: immediate demand for access, Miss Last Name. It has come to our attention that you have withheld critical encryption keys. We demand immediate release of said keys, or we will seek injunctive relief. I didn't reply. I forwarded the email to my lawyer, a guy named Saul, no, really, who operates out of a strip mall next to a vape shop. Saul is a pit bull in a cheap suit. He lives for this. I texted Saul, sick am. I went to the fridge. I was out of creamer. Guess I have to go to the store, I told the cat. I drove to the grocery store. I took my time. I walked down the aisles, squeezing avocados. I saw a woman in a company uniform, one of our drivers, staring at a package of diapers. She put them back on the shelf. My heart broke. That was real. That was the collateral damage of Chad's ego. I walked up to her. I didn't know her name. Hey, I said, here. Handed her a $50 bill. What? No, I can't. She stammered. Take it, I said, company bonus. The system is messed up. It'll be fixed soon. You work there? She asked, looking at my faded jeans and band t-shirt. Used to, I said. I'm the one they fired so they could afford the incompetence. She took the money. Thank you. Don't thank me, I said, my voice hard. Blame Brad. I left the store. My anger was cold now. It had crystallized into something sharp. I wasn't just going to wait for them to call. I was going to make them beg. By 2:00 p.m. on Friday, the company wasn't a business anymore. It was a crime scene. The news had upgraded the story from glitch to crisis. A news helicopter was circling the main distribution hub. Footage showed a line of semi-trucks parked across the exit gates, blocking anyone from leaving. The drivers were sitting on their hoods, eating sandwiches, holding signs that said cash or crash. It was beautiful. It was the French Revolution with diesel fumes. Inside the glass box of the headquarters, things were allegedly devolving into Lord of the Flies. Paul, my inside man, was live texting me the play-by-play. Chad just threw a stapler at the wall. Legal is screaming that they can't get a judge to sign the injunction on a Friday afternoon. IT tried to restore from a backup tape from 2022 and crashed the email server. Now nobody has email. The spreadsheet, the glorious, cursed spreadsheet. Apparently, Brad had tried to fix it one last time. He tried to run a macro to reverse the tax errors, but because the file was now 500 megabytes of bloated XML garbage, it froze his laptop. He force quit. The file corrupted. Not just the data, the file itself. Payroll Master Final v3 Real XLSX was now a 0 KB ghost. He had no backup because the cloud was supposed to save it, but he hadn't synced it. The entire payroll record for the pay period was gone, vaporized. At 3:00 p.m., my phone rang. It wasn't Chad. It wasn't Linda. It was the CEO, James R. Sterling. I'd met him once, 5 years ago, at a Christmas party. He asked me to fix the Wi-Fi on his phone. That was the extent of our relationship. I let it ring. Ring, ring, ring. I stared at the name, James R. Sterling. I let it go to voicemail, power move. You don't pick up the first time, you let them sweat. You let them wonder if you're dead or in Mexico or just sitting on your couch laughing at them. I waited 5 minutes. Then I listened to the voicemail, Miss Miller. This is James Sterling. We have a situation. I've been briefed on the transition issues. Need to resolve this. Today, name your terms. Please call me back. Transition issues, resolve, name your terms, there it was. The white flag, but I wasn't done. They needed to understand that this wasn't a negotiation about money. This was an exorcism. I didn't call him back. Instead, I poured another cup of coffee and opened my laptop. I logged into my encrypted personal cloud. I pulled up the doomsday script. It was a simple script. Wrote it 3 years ago when they denied my raise. It doesn't destroy data. It just verifies it. It runs a checksum on the entire database structure and rebuilds the indexes. It's the digital equivalent of untangling a ball of yarn. But only I could run it, and only I knew the password to the tunnel. At 3:30 p.m., my doorbell rang. I looked out the peephole. It was a courier holding a thick envelope. I opened the door. Delivery for Karen Miller, that's me. He handed me the envelope. Urgent. Sign here, I signed. I tore it open. It was a contract, a consulting agreement. Rate $500/hour, duration indefinite. Scope payroll system restoration. It was an insult. $500 an hour, that's what they pay the lawyers to threaten me. They thought they could buy me off with pocket change. I walked to my kitchen, grabbed a Sharpie, and wrote across the front page in big black letters, no. I took a picture of it. I texted it to Chad. 1 minute later, Chad called. I answered. Karen, he sounded breathless, like he'd been running or crying. Hello, Chad, we sent the contract. Did you see it? $500 an hour, that's double your old rate. I don't have an old rate, Chad. I'm unemployed. I'm a private citizen enjoying her Friday. Karen, please, the trucks aren't moving. The stock is down 4% in 2 hours. The board is eating me alive. How's Brad? I asked. How's the Excel wizard? Brad is relieved of his duties, Chad said, his voice tight. Relieved or fired? He's, step aside. Not good enough, I said. And neither is the money. What do you want? Chad screamed. It was a raw, primal sound. Just tell me what you want. I want the CEO, I said on speaker. In 5 minutes. He's in a meeting with the bank. Pull him out, or I go back to watching Shark Tank. I hung up. I lit a cigarette. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from adrenaline. This was it. The moment where the mechanic tells the race car driver that the engine doesn't start without the key, and she swallowed the key. I waited. The clock ticked. 3:45 p.m. 3:50 p.m. The phone rang. James R. Sterling. I slid the icon to answer. This is Karen. Miss Miller, the CEO's voice was smooth, practiced, but I could hear the tightness in his jaw from 3 miles away. I'm on with Chad and Linda from legal. Hi, James, I said. I didn't call him Mr. Sterling. We were peers now. Actually, no, I was above him. I was the supplier and he was the desperate junkie. We need the payroll system back online, immediately. We understand there were errors in the transition to the new process. You mean when you fired me and let a toddler play with a loaded gun? I asked, examining my fingernails. Silence on the line. Then a throat clearing. Acknowledged that the implementation of the manual spreadsheet model was premature. It was malpractice, James. You violated federal labor laws, tax codes in 12 states, and the trust of every person who drives a truck for you. You didn't just break the software, you broke the company. We are prepared to offer you a significant retainer to fix it, James said, rushing past the morality lecture. Name your price. I took a drag of my cigarette. Sent me a contract for $500 an hour. That was cute. What is your number? $25,000, I said. A month, James asked. For this weekend, I corrected. Paid upfront. Wire transfer before I touch a keyboard. Choking sounds from the other end, that's extortion. Linda squeaked. No, Linda, extortion is threatening to sue a fired employee for your own incompetence. This is consulting. Specialized emergency consulting. Hazard pay. Fine, James said immediately. Done. $25,000. Wired today. I'm not finished, I said. What else? James sounded tired. I want a new contract. 1 year guaranteed, triple my previous salary. And I report directly to the CIO, not operations. I'm done with Chad. Done, James said. Chad can restructure, and one more thing. Yes, I want a written apology. From Chad and Brad. Sent to the entire company, admitting that the delay was caused by management error and the removal of critical IT personnel. And I want it posted on the intranet. Karen, we can't. Chad started. Shut up, Chad, James snapped. We'll do it. Good, I said. Send the wire. Send the contract. When the money hits my account, I'll start the car. How long will it take to fix? James asked. If Brad hasn't deleted the master logs, 6 hours. If he has, 12. He might have deleted some things. Chad mumbled. 12 hours then. Plus the bank processing time. I can get the file to the Fed by Saturday morning. People get paid Monday. Monday, James exhaled. Okay, Monday is acceptable. It prevents the lawsuit. Pleasure doing business with you, I said. I hung up. I sat there for a moment, staring at the phone. $25,000 for a weekend. Triple salary. The utter humiliation of my enemies. I should have felt elated. I should have been dancing on the coffee table. But mostly, I just felt tired. It shouldn't have come to this. It shouldn't take a disaster for people to respect the person who keeps the lights on. I looked at my computer. The doomsday script was waiting. Ding, my banking app notification. Incoming wire transfer, $25,000.00. I stood up. I went to the bathroom and washed my face. I looked in the mirror. It looked like a woman who had just survived a war. Dark circles, messy hair, cigarette ash on my shirt. Time to go to work, I told my reflection. I put on a clean shirt. I grabbed my keys. I grabbed my lucky screwdriver. I walked out to the truck. The air smelled of rain. I drove back to the office. The sun was setting, casting long, bloody shadows across the parking lot. The picket line was still there. The drivers saw my truck. Some of them recognized me. I must have told them. They parted ways. One guy, a massive bearded dude holding a sign that said, "Where's my rent?" gave me a thumbs up. I drove through the gates. I parked in the VP's spot, because why the hell not? I walked into the lobby. Paul was there. He grinned. "Welcome back, Cotter," he said. "Paul," I nodded. "Is the coffee fresh? Made a new pot just for you." I took the elevator up. The doors opened. The office was quiet now. Most of the staff had fled. The lights in the conference room were on. I walked in. Chad was sitting at the head of the table, head in his hands. Brad was in the corner, staring at the floor. James, the CEO, was standing by the window. They all looked up. I didn't say hello. I didn't smile. I walked to the server room door, unlocked it with the key they had to give me back, and stepped inside. The hum was there. The fans, the heat. "Hello, beast," I whispered. "Did you miss me?" The server room smelled like ozone and stale fear. Brad's cologne still lingered in the air, a phantom scent of failure. I sat down at my terminal. My chair was still adjusted to my height, thank God, and cracked my knuckles. I pulled up the logs. It was a crime scene. Brad hadn't just used Excel. He had tried to force-feed the SQL database with raw text commands he probably found on a Reddit thread titled "How to SQL for Beginners." It locked the transaction tables. The system wasn't dead. It was in a coma, protecting itself from his stupidity. I began to type. Select from payroll staging where status equals locked. 10,000 rows returned. Jesus, I muttered. He had manually locked every single employee record. I started the purge. I wrote a script to kill the hung processes. It was rhythmic. Click, clack, click. The mechanical keyboard sang the song of redemption. The door behind me opened. I didn't turn around. "Karen," it was Brad. His voice was small. "Don't," I said, "don't speak. Don't breathe too loud. You are a ghost, Brad. You don't exist. I wanted to say. The tutorial said that." I spun my chair around. The look on my face must have been terrifying because he took a step back. "The tutorial?" I asked, my voice low. "You tried to run a billion-dollar payroll based on a YouTube tutorial. It worked on the sample data," he whispered. "Sample data is a garden hose, Brad. Production data is a fire hose. You tried to drink from the fire hose and you drowned us all." I turned back to the screen. "Get out of my church." He left. I worked. Hour 1, hour 2. I restored the tax tables from the backup I kept on my encrypted partition. I reran the logic checks. Green text started to flow across the screen. Verifying employee ID 0001. Okay. Verifying employee ID 0002. Okay, it was beautiful. It was the digital heartbeat returning. At hour 4, Chad came in. He brought me a coffee, a peace offering. "How's it looking?" he asked, trying to sound authoritative but failing. "The patient will live," I said, not taking the coffee. "But she's gonna have a limp." Meaning I have to manually reconcile the time clock differentials for the last 3 days. Brad's spreadsheet erased the overtime flags. Have to rebuild them based on the door swipe logs. "Can you do it?" "I'm Karen," I said. "I can do anything except tolerate fools." "Yes, I can do it. James is asking for an ETA. Tell James I'll have the ACH file ready by 2:00 a.m. He needs to wake up the bank president." Chad nodded. He looked older than he did on Tuesday. "Karen, save it, Chad. Read the apology letter you're going to write. Make sure you spell incompetence correctly." Walked away. I put my headphones on. AC/DC highway to hell. I entered the flow state. The code was flying now. I was stitching the wounds, bypassing the corrupted sectors, rerouting the data streams. I felt like I was welding underwater. By 1:30 a.m., the file was ready. Payroll export final actually final dat. I ran the checksum. It matched. I hit the transmit button. A progress bar appeared, connecting to Federal Reserve Gateway. Authenticating, transmitting, I held my breath. This was the choke point. If the bank rejected the handshake because the keys were out of sync, transmission complete. Batch ID, #992,810. I exhaled, a long, shaky breath. The money was moving. It was flying through the fiber optic cables, bouncing off satellites, diving into servers. 10,000 bank accounts were about to get a pending deposit notification. Slumped back in my chair, my back hurt, my eyes burned, I needed a cigarette. I stood up and walked out of the server room. The conference room was empty except for James. He was asleep in a chair, his tie undone. "It's done," I said. He jerked awake. "What? It's done?" "The money is at the bank." He looked at his watch. 1:45 a.m., you beat the estimate. "Under promise, over deliver," I said. "That's what actual professionals do." James stood up. He extended his hand. I looked at it. I didn't shake it. "I'll be in on Monday to sign the new contract," I said, "and to interview my new team. I want 3 junior analysts, real ones, not MBA. I want kids who know how to code and aren't afraid to get their hands dirty." "Whatever you need," James said. "And James?" "Yes, tell Brad to update his LinkedIn. Payroll specialist might be a stretch." I turned and walked to the elevator. I walked out into the cool night air. The trucks were still there, but the drivers were asleep in their cabs. I took out my phone. I texted Paul, "Tell the boys to check their apps." Eagle has landed. I got in my truck. I didn't turn the radio on. I just listened to the engine purr. I drove home. I was $25,000 richer. I had a job that paid triple. I had one. But as I pulled into my driveway, I didn't feel like a winner. I felt like a survivor. Monday morning felt different. Air was cleaner. The sun was brighter, or maybe that was just the reflection off the new contract in my bag. I pulled into the parking lot at 8:55 a.m. I didn't park in the back. I parked in the visitor spot right up front. Technically, I was a consultant now. I walked in. The receptionist, a sweet girl named Sarah, looked up. Her eyes went wide. "Karen, oh my God, thank you," she whispered. "My rent check cleared this morning." "You're welcome, Sarah," I said. "Spend it all on avocado toast." I walked to the elevator. People were looking at me, not the way they used to, like I was furniture. They looked at me like I was a wizard who had just slain a dragon. There was fear and there was respect, mostly fear. That works. I went to the IT floor. My old desk was still there, but it was empty. Brad's stuff was gone, no fleece vest, no gum wrappers. I walked into the VP's office. Chad was there, looked like he hadn't slept all weekend. "Karen," he said, standing up. "Sit down, Chad," I said, taking the chair opposite him. "Did you post it?" He nodded. He turned his monitor around. There, on the company intranet homepage, was a text box. "Official statement regarding payroll delay. We sincerely apologize. Management error. Underestimation of system complexity. Rapid transition failure. Restructuring our operations department to ensure this never happens again." It didn't name Brad explicitly, but everyone knew. "Where is he?" I asked. "Brad has decided to pursue other opportunities," Chad said. "He's going back to school. Law school, I think." "God help the legal system," I muttered. "And me?" Chad asked. "James said I report to you on technical infrastructure now." "That's right," I said. "No more visionary ideas, Chad. No more disrupting. Now on, if you want to change a printer cartridge, you run it by me. If you want to update Adobe Reader, you submit a ticket. You are on a leash. A very short, very digital leash." Chad swallowed hard. "Understood." I stood up. "I'm going to my new office." "I assume you cleared out the corner one?" "Yes, it's ready." I walked to the corner office. It had windows, it had a view of the highway, it had a door that closed. I sat down in the leather chair. It was comfortable. I opened my laptop. The beast was purring, all systems green. I took a sip of my coffee. This is the thing about the modern world. People think it runs on money or politics or innovation. It doesn't. It runs on millions of lines of ugly spaghetti code written by tired people in dark rooms. It runs on the invisible glue that holds the crumbling infrastructure together. They tried to cut the glue. They thought they didn't need it. They thought they could replace the mechanic with a brochure. They learned. I checked my bank account again. The numbers were nice, but the feeling of control, that was better. I pulled up a terminal window. I typed a single command. Uptime system up, 0 days, 8 hours, 12 minutes. It was a fresh start. I leaned back, put my feet on the desk, boots and all, and lit a cigarette. "Yeah, you're not supposed to smoke inside." What are they gonna do? Fire me. I'd like to see them try. The phone on my desk rang. Payroll operations, Karen speaking. Hey Karen, it's James Sterling. What can I do for you, James? Just wanted to say, thanks, and that smell is something burning. I took a long drag. Just the bridges I burned, James, just the bridges. I hung up. I turned on my Danny DeVito asthma playlist. I opened a new spreadsheet. Project Total System Rewrite. Estimated cost, $2 million. Lead consultant, Karen Miller. I smiled. Don't mess with the janitor. We have the keys to everything. And to all the Brads out there with their Excel sheets and their vests, check your formulas, boys. The real world doesn't have an undo button. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.